Hey to the most amazing nurses. It is Dr. V here with Morning Infusion with Dr. V podcast, where we are intentional about teaching nurses how to work from anywhere around the world, making money and owning your own time, building profitable nurse coaching and consulting businesses. You will hear from amazing guests that have grown their companies and want to share insight into how you can do the same to change the face of healthcare as we know it. If you want to grow your businesses and leverage your knowledge as a nurse to grow wildly successful businesses at the top, instead of working your way to the top, head on over and join our Millionaire Nurse CEO group on Facebook, where you can ask questions and get updates on our live and virtual events to help you grow your businesses. Good morning, everyone. So I have the pleasure of having Lexi J here. So Lexi is thebomb.com. I just want to let y'all know ahead of time, okay, she is absolutely amazing. Every time I talk to her, I laugh because she gives me something that I didn't have before, okay? And so whenever you can talk to people like that, what happens is you know that they are your people. So I want Lexi, how about you introduce yourself?
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Pierce, for inviting me on. Hello, everyone. So I'm Lexi J. I'm also known as the corporate nurse. I am a corporate nurse. That means I work in companies that provide healthcare services, products and services to healthcare entities, patients, and ultimately healthcare professionals. I was a former trauma surgical ICU nurse for decades and got tired of being sick and tired and decided that I wanted to still utilize my clinical skills, but within companies that provided services to hospitals. And so I embarked on this journey, didn't know what I was doing in the beginning. And now I am going on year 9 in corporate nursing and I love it.
I love it. Because that's not something that you really think about. Someone said the other day that, nursing is a funnel, right? Because they funnel you straight to the hospital pretty much. Like you don't get those opportunities, or you don't even think that, okay, I can be an entrepreneur. Okay, I can go into corporate nursing. You don't even think about that. You just think, well, I'm going to go to the hospital. I'm going to go to somebody's doctor's office and I'm going to be okay. And listen, there are a whole list of opportunities out here for nursing, right? Yes. And so I love it. So now tell me a little bit about, like we always go back to the beginning, okay? How did you start? Like, why did you even want to become a nurse from the very beginning? And I don't even think you started out wanting to become a nurse, but go ahead, tell us.
I didn't. I was not called to nursing. I was working at a phone company. And it was like a reseller for those who couldn't get traditional services with Bell South. That's how old I'm dating myself. And they would come into this office and sign up for services, and it was robbed at gunpoint. I wasn't there the day that it happened. It was my off day, but it freaked me out. And I was like, I can't do this. Like, I'm going to go be a nurse. I just thought that. I knew nurses could always have a job, made great money or decent money. And so I decided I wanted to do that. So I go and I get this job at a hospital. I'm working in their level 1 trauma center. I'm seeing, can I really do this, being exposed to this level of trauma and not freak out? I saw some amazing nurses that function so autonomously. I was like, oh my God, I want to be like them. So sign up for, take my prerequisites, get into school, do my thing. Ironically, I wanted to be an associate's prepared nurse. I was not embarking on going and getting a BSN. I worked with a lot of associate prepared nurses that just got things done. And so ironically, I only got accepted to 4-year program. So I was like, well, guess this is what it's going to be. So that's how I got into nursing school. And then I knew I wanted to be a critical care nurse. There was nothing else for me. It excited me. It made me think. It made me tick. And I went into the ICU, loved it, but didn't make a lot of money. I worked weekend nights, which you made, a little bit more, but it just wasn't enough. And so I'm always someone, show me everything that I can do. And so what does a typical ICU nurse say? I want to go CRNA school. So I'm thinking, all right, I'm gonna go to CRNA school. I had my heart set on one particular program. I did not get into it. And I was like, what now? What am I supposed to do? So I said, I'm going to try something different. I've worked at this facility for a decade. I've done only critical care nursing, surgical ICU, trauma ICU. I'm going to move and try something different. So I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and I try interventional radiology. Still love the procedural component of it, loved being able to sedate patients. And so I started to meet people within the pharmaceutical industry that came in, didn't seem stressed out, had a nice Louis Vuitton bag, would come in, walk us through a procedure and leave home. And I was like, So I'm like, that's nice. So I was making better money, I will say, than what I made at my first facility, but I wanted to make more. So then I do travel nursing. I'm working a travel contract. I'm doing PRN. And I'm just blowing money like I'm Paris Hilton, just, not really knowing. I'm just out here wilding. And so I'm a mom and I'm like, okay. My son was in California with our family for the summer. When he was coming back, I was like, all right, I got to stop hustling. So I go and I become a transplant coordinator. Loved it. I am a hepatology queen. I love liver transplant. Those patients, I just love them. So I enjoyed the position. It was wonderful. Still not making enough money. Just wasn't making enough. So I'm working a ton of overtime. And I'm like, something's got to give. And so I put my resume. This is back when you could put your resume on Indeed and not have a scammer call you. And I started applying for these jobs. I'm like, listen, I want to still keep my nursing clinical skills, but I no longer want to work in the hospital. I was tired. I was underpaid. I was stressed. I was done. So I just start remembering, wait, when I worked in interventional radiology, those people, they came in and they didn't seem stressed out. So I started applying for these positions at these companies, not knowing what I'm doing. I'm asking colleagues for help and they're like, Lex, why do you want to leave? Stay here with us. Just do critical nursing pay. Like, don't leave. You're not going to be a nurse anymore. And I'm like, this check is not cutting it. Like, I have to have more money. I'm a mom. So I get several rejection letters from positions I applied for. But then this one company calls me and I'm like, a nurse can work at this company? Like, doing what? And so she was like, well, let's meet. I want to talk to you about the position. So it was in medical device. And I embark on a 7-8 week interview process for this company. I was going to get a 35% salary increase immediately, a $17,000 guaranteed bonus, company car, corporate credit card. And I'm like, seriously, a nurse I can do this? It was a different interview process. It was very, very tedious, but I got the position. And when I got that first paycheck, I said, I'm not going back to the bedside. This is it. This is it for me.
Not stressed. Getting a paycheck. Listen.
Work from home. I sold my car. I don't have a car note. Don't have insurance anymore. I'm just banking money.
I love it. I love it. So you got the corporate car, so you don't have a car note.
Right.
Listen, that's a whole thing. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So tell us about I love talking to ICU nurses because a lot of people think that ICU nurses and ER nurses are the same, and we really are not. ICU nurses are very detail oriented, and ER nurses are overall picture thinking. And so, we'll send a patient to y'all, and it'll be like, listen, I don't know what's going on with the heart. They came in here with she complaining their foot. This is what's going on with the foot. Okay? And ICU nurses aren't, that drives y'all crazy. Anyway, so let's go back to this. You get this job, okay? And when you get this job, you're like, I'm not going back, okay? So tell me a little bit about why you say that the process was tedious. What was tedious about it?
It was tedious. So, as nurses, we're used to applying for a position in a hospital, usually get a call within a week or two. You have a conversation with the manager, charge nurse, whoever, director. Maybe you come in and tour the unit, you got the job. In corporate nursing, you have to go through several rounds of interviews. So I had the initial conversation with the person who would essentially be my director. We talked on the phone, had a great conversation for about an hour. She then flew into Atlanta and we met at her hotel in a conference room, like lobby area. We talked about the position. Then I had to meet with 2 additional sales team members that I would be working with. We met at a restaurant, had a nice conversation. They just asked me, about my clinical skill set. This particular company loves critical care nurses. So they knew I could do the role with my eyes closed. They were just looking to see how I could connect with individuals because this position had a lot of presenting to C-suite executives in the hospitals. So I had that was interview number 3. Then I had a 4th interview with the nursing director of the entire United States. And then I had a final interview of a presentation. They let me pick something that I was passionate or loved talking about, and I presented to their nursing director as well as the person who would be my direct manager. And I'd never, I presented during rounds. I had never presented in nursing school. So I'm like, am I doing this right? But they were just looking to see how I connect with them. Do I maintain eye contact? How do I speak about something, that I love doing? That's why they let me pick the topic. And they called and was like, we want you. When can you start?
I love it. I think that one of the things that's really an unrepresented skill is the ability to speak from the stage.
Yes.
That is an unrepresented, like, people don't understand that is not, like, you don't just do that when you're actually speaking from the stage as like a motivational speaker or whatever, right? Like,
Mhm.
you have to do that all the time
Yes.
as a leader, right?
Yes.
Being able to do that. So tell me a little bit about how you were able to navigate that, right?
It was definitely nerve-wracking in the beginning. I had a very strong manager who loved to present, and she was like, listen, I can teach you how to do this. Like, that's not my worry. So every week during training, we had 10 weeks of training, we were presenting on a various topic, like their IP, their devices. We would assess hospitals and present their data. And so you would just every week have to get up there and present in front of either virtually in front of your team, or you would be shadowing someone in the field and they would have a little session where an hour you were getting up and presenting over several different salespeople. And so after about 3 months, you're pretty much good. You're like, I can do this with my eyes closed. And so that's what excuse me, that's what really helped. I didn't know. Now looking forward 9 years later, I present now in every position. I present cross-functionally to teams. I'm always presenting. So I appreciate that first position gave me that foundation of being able to present, connect with my audience, being able to how to sway the room. I did a lot of educational presenting to nurses and medical doctors about our devices. And so not knowing that years later, that will continue to help me in corporate nursing.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So you got the job and then you presented to, or so, like, who was doing the 10 weeks of training with you?
So it would be my manager. Then I would follow people in the field, shadow people in the field. I was flying all over the US to look at facilities, assess facilities, look at their data. And then we would always, do role play in our presentations prior to. So I would present to whoever represented that particular territory. And then we would go from there to say, all right, what's your story? That's how I started to learn that on the stage, you tell a story. And so we just would tell it in a more healthcare centric, how we can get infections down, area. But it was nerve wracking for the very first time to walk into a room and you're presenting to the CNO, the director of infection prevention, the chief medical officer, the financial officers, to essentially you're selling up this company's portfolio to get them to buy into their products and services.
I love that. I love that. I love that. So tell me a little bit about once you got into the job, you knew you had the job, you were good. So what are some of the things, that you do within your job roles?
Great question. So it's going to depend on what side of the business that you land on. My first position was in a commercial setting. That's for any drug or device that has FDA approval as being sold across the United States and the rest of the world. Then there's the research and development space where you work preclinical up to your phase 3 clinical trials. These are investigative drugs and devices that a company is trying to get FDA approval for commercialization for. I have spent the bulk of my corporate nursing career in research and development. My first position was a commercial position, and then I got into research, and I love it. It's amazing. You're always at the forefront of cutting edge technology, new products, new services that are coming into the marketplace. So I love that area. I've just done different roles in it. I started out, as in commercial as a clinical manager where I worked with medical device products. And then I went over into research and I started doing a medical device for endocrinology, cardiovascular, just depending on. And you can work in different therapeutic areas. That's the beauty of it. It's so versatile, just like in the hospital. You can do peds, you can do NICU, you can do ER, you can do ICU. In corporate nursing, same thing applies. I've done medical device. I've done, traditional pills. I've done consulting. There's so many different things. So the bulk of my research career is going in and looking to see and assess, are we selecting the right clinical trial sites for our patient populations? If it's an oncology trial, are we in our right areas? The diversity component, I bring that to the table. Are we placing these trials in places where Black, brown patients can have easy access to them? Are we looking and seeing and giving new investigators, new Black and brown investigators, opportunities within clinical research because they're not heavily represented? I do a lot of cross-functional collaboration and just educating non-clinicians on how the flow of patient care hospitals work. Because truth be told, a lot of people who design clinical studies, who design medical devices, have no patient care experience. And that is not good. This is why more nurses are needed in these spaces to speak truth to power.
Listen, that's a whole word right there, because I don't know if the general public knows this, okay?
Right?
But literally, like, we had a launch of our EHR, and they were, because they think systematic, they think, like almost like in a linear fashion, right? And healthcare is not linear at all, right?
Right.
There's so many aspects that come into play whenever you're doing things. And so, we were in there, and they were talking about processes that were work. I was like, that's not gonna work.
Right?
And literally, I was afraid. I've never been afraid for patient care in my life until we did this launch, and I was a part of it. And I was like, this is not really good. But what I do like about what you said was you bringing in the diversity piece of it. So explain to me, how was that something you were asked to do? If it was not something that you were asked to do, how is it that you were able to navigate that and be okay with that?
Great question. So it wasn't something I was asked to do. In my first research and development position, I noticed that I didn't see a lot of diversity in the clinical trial enrollment. I would go into sites and train them on this particular medical device. It had an aseptic component to it. So I would work with the facility to make sure that they were following aseptic practices during the procedure. But so I was in the room most of the time, and I didn't see a lot of diversity enrollments. And so I started asking my manager, why are we not seeing any diversity in these studies, and who's really looking at that information? And she was like, she didn't know how to answer. Honestly, she didn't. And she was like, is this something that you're curious about? And I was like, absolutely. I covered the Southeast territory. That's the largest population of Black patients. And so it wasn't translating over. And then I go into another position and I ask the same questions. And in this particular position now, I'm a senior director. I am running clinical trials for a medical device company. And I'm noticing our protocols are written in a particular way where it says enrollment will have, 85% Caucasian participants. And I'm like, what? Why are we writing this like this? Where's the diversity component? And I'll tell you, it makes people very nervous when you bring this conversation up. They are wide-eyed. They're like, oh my God, they don't know what to say. And so I am someone who's not afraid to ask the hard questions. How are we going to get better at this if we don't have these conversations? Let's not sweep it under the rug. And so now every position that I've gone into, I've brought that diversity aspect to it, to where I even presented to the leadership at my last company on, this is what we need to be focused on. This is what we need to do. And so they were like, design a role. Let's make one for you. It just so happened that then pandemic happens and the FDA says, you guys need to prioritize minority patients with these clinical trials when it comes to anything that is going for the coronavirus cure, treatment. And so companies are now put on notice like, well, the FDA took it a step further and said, we have asked the pharmaceutical industry to make your data reflect diverse patients. You've not done that. So now we're going to mandate it. And so as of 2023, any phase 3 clinical trial has to have a diversity plan. They have particular numbers they have to hit. And if they don't, they're subject to have their drugs or devices not get FDA approval. So now it is a must.
I love it. And you saw that coming from the very beginning. Like, That is so refreshing. So incredibly refreshing. And what I do like about, because we discussed prior to coming on the podcast, the fact that you're in school now to get your PhD, so you will be Dr. Lexi, and I will start calling you that. Okay, so if I start calling you that, then you just, hey, how you doing? So Dr. Lexi, so the deal is that when you said that you were going into your PhD, but you were taking some extra components in diversity.
Mhm.
And one of the things, and I listen, that has been a struggle of mine for a little while. And this is the reason why, is because I remember sitting in a C-suite room, okay? And I will never ever forget this. And it was one of the things that really charged me to become an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
There were several aspects, but this one really, really was it was the catalyst, right, for me to be
Mhm.
an entrepreneur. Is the diversity and inclusion person, the president, or not president, but the director. She came to the organization and she said that your area is 50% African American. So then your C-suite should really represent that. And it wasn't, and I mean, there was nobody in there that was African except for me, right? And I wasn't a part of the C-suite. I was just in the position for it, right?
Mhm.
And the reality is that had you not been there and had you not had that voice to say that this is what we need, then we would definitely be underrepresented in that space. And so thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank
You're
you.
so welcome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now we're going to go to commercial again. And then what we're going to talk to Lexi about is what she's now doing for our nurses.
Hey to the most amazing nurses. It is Dr. V here with Morning Infusion with Dr. V podcast, where we are intentional about teaching nurses how to work from anywhere around the world, making money and owning your own time, building profitable nurse coaching and consulting businesses. You will hear from amazing guests that have grown their companies and want to share insight into how you can do the same to change the face of healthcare as we know it. If you want to grow your businesses and leverage your knowledge as a nurse to grow wildly successful businesses at the top, instead of working your way to the top, head on over and join our Millionaire Nurse CEO group on Facebook, where you can ask questions and get updates on our live and virtual events to help you grow your businesses.
Okay, so now we need to get into what you're doing now for other nurses, okay? Because you're the corporate nurse career coach. Okay? So you go ahead, tell us about that.
All right. So, first things first, I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. I can find how to get great paying jobs, high six-figure jobs. I never wanted the entrepreneurial bug. I just didn't have it. But when I would, in my first position, when I would walk into facilities, I always had nurses asking me, how did you get this job? How did you get this job? Especially, Black nurses would be like, girl, how did you, like, help me? And so I love looking at resumes. I love figuring out, like, how can we really showcase your skill set, changing these resumes to really show your impact. I love interviewing. I've always interviewed well across nursing. And so when I got that first check, I was like, I can't go back to the bedside. Like, I got to keep these jobs coming in. And so I would periodically just interview for fun to just ensure, okay, number one, is there a better job out there? What's the money looking like? Like, I want to know. So I start helping some old coworkers. They were like, hey, Lex, you having a little fun over there. You haven't come back to the bedside. Like, can you help me? And so I helped a few colleagues get into this space. And one was like, you need to start a business and do this for nurses. And I was like, nurses are going to pay for this. Like, everyone thinks that the hospitals are only opportunity. Like, I just don't see it. And then in 2018 was like, okay, let me try this. I'm going to see. So I start this business, and in the beginning, you don't know what you don't know. And then really got serious with it during 2020 when I saw nurses, not knowing what was coming. I read all the stories about what was going on in the hospital settings. the reusing of N95s, I was just like, no, I need to really get serious about this. So I had always done one-on-one coaching, word of mouth, but then I start going to group project programs. I get on social media. I'm a super private person. Like, I want to be behind the scenes. So putting myself out there was such, oh my, I battle with myself. I just don't like, I don't need the mic. Like, I'd rather be doing the work and getting things done. I don't want to be seen. I don't need to be the next nice shiny object. So I designed this program. It's called Leap to Corporate Nursing. And so nurses can come into it at any time. They can do it at their leisure, or if they want to just blow it out of the water. I used to do it in 12-week blocks. I would have launches once a quarter. And you come in and I show you exactly, number one, how to get your mindset right, because we've been so indoctrinated that you can only work in the hospital setting. We have to really shed some of those, myths about nursing, and really just loving on nurses and showing them that you have very marketable skills in other industries that translate over, and people want you in these companies. Then a little bit of clarity. What do you really like to do? What makes you tick? What makes you happy? What do you hate about nursing? What do you love about nursing? I'm big on professional lifestyle, career lifestyle design. I don't want you just going into a position, so many of us look for a job when we need a job and then are just like taking whatever we can get. I want nurses to design a position that they really will enjoy. Then how do you get there? Where to search and apply for these positions, how to interview successfully, how to negotiate your salary and not leave any money on the table. Because I meet so many nurses who are like, I'm just looking for 85,000. And I'm like, baby, this job starts at 125. You're asking for at minimum 125. We're not just, I'm only looking for. And then how to transform yourself and become acclimated to a remote working team, traveling for business, if that's what you're going to be doing, being able to sell everything cross-functionally. How do you interact with people online to still be impactful, because you're not in the hospital, you're not talking to someone in front of you. And so it is just a well thought out, it's my personal signature framework for this program that I'm super happy about. I've had great success. Nurses love it. And I want more nurses to come in and do this. We need you in corporate nursing.
I love, love, love all of that. And so tell us a little bit about where we can find you.
Okay. So of course I'm on social media. You can find me on LinkedIn if that's your job, at Lexi J. Instagram, I'm the corporate nurse. Facebook, the corporate nurse. Twitter, I am Nurse Lexi J. And you can interact with me. I love to talk about corporate nursing. I do. I will say that it's not for everyone. Some nurses know they still want that clinical component. I tip my hat to you. I will never down a nurse who says, I want to stay at the bedside. For those that are like me and others who are like, I love it, but I'm searching for more. This just isn't ticking my box. Give corporate nursing a try. For those who are like, I don't want anything to do with this, I'm ready to hang up my nursing degree, please try corporate nursing. Don't throw away your degree. You work too hard for it. You can still utilize it in other areas. You can email me, Lexi J, or lexi@thecorporatenurse.co. I'm all things corporate nursing. I love it. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions. My website, forgot about that, thecorporatenurse.co. Lots of information there, blogs. I talk about all things corporate, things that goes on in the hospital that will translate into corporate. So you have a little bit of idea that, wait, I can take these skills over into this area, so you don't feel out of your zone and that you can't do it. You so can do it. Corporate nursing is 50% less stress than bedside and very much easier.
Love it. I love it. I love it. So thinking is more thinking that it is actual hard work, that it is. And over the years, I think that we have been indoctrinated that we have to work hard in order to get a paycheck. But I think that once you get, at least, I don't know, 3 to 5 years under your belt, and if you understand that the bedside is not for you, because it's just not for everybody. And if I'd have known that at the very beginning, listen, I wish I'd met you a long time ago. It would have been a whole thing, because it makes such a difference. So I want you to go and follow Lexi J also, and reach out to her if you want to become a corporate nurse, for sure. Also, follow, share this podcast. Okay, this gives us the ability to be able to get the word out to more people. It gets us the ability to be able to highlight the nurses who come in here, like Lexi, who are amazing. Like from the date I met her, I knew, like she came up to me, she was like, "Hey, Dr. Pierce." I was like, "Hey." And so she said, "I'm Lexi." I was like, "Hey, Lexi." And she told me what she was, and she told me what she did. I was like, "Say what now? You want to be on my podcast?" She was amazing and dynamic. So she's an amazing person, and has been amazing from the very beginning. We know that we don't put anybody up here who's a hot mess. So there you go. Okay. All right. So follow Lexi, and you guys have a phenomenal rest of your day. Okay.
Thank you so much.